So welcome back. Now the third outer strategy, and that is leading by example. Now, if you're already successful with the Gurkha strategy and that worked well for you, it may have been the natural next step. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. So go right ahead, because the inner work will help you here as well. If you are dealing with bullies, you're going to maybe have to wait a little bit with this one or modify it, because it could be that you put your animals in danger if you show too much to them, because then you give them something to attack. If you have people who are a mixture, which happens sometimes, it can be very helpful if you just focus on the ones that are positive and then build a coalition while you do a mixture of. Remember how I told you the first time when I went out with into the campground, but I didn't have the little kittens yet, with which it didn't work. But I did a mixture between kind of a hiding in plain sight strategy and the Gurkha strategy. That I had this tent outside and I had this kind of a fencing bit inside, so that the animals could go out and nobody actually saw them until, because I had everything closed, until I had made friends with everybody around me. So that is something that can help as well. And I found that when I moved in somewhere else, that initially there was a lot of the bullies were absolutely there and they were oppressing everybody. But then I did stand up to the bullies and then made connections with the people who had problems with them, who were actually actively connecting to me, also trying to support me. And we made a coalition in a way, not being aggressive towards them, towards the bullies, but just supporting each other and just giving each other support. And then people saw that, oh, there's another group there. We aren't the only group who can actually, control this space. But also they are not hurting us. And what they are doing is actually not a bad thing, because I was also explaining what I was doing to some of the people who were in that group, but a little bit more open to discussions. So it was a little bit of a negotiation, and that actually worked really well. And now when we see each other outside, it is a very natural thing. It is not a technique anymore. It is a very natural thing that we see each other, that we help each other out. So you can build these coalitions, and then you will have a little bit more of an equilibrium than if you're both alone, right? So that can be a strategy there. But if the Gurkha strategy worked already, and you're in an environment where it's actually people are quite positive, and you've made good connections with people, then you can actually start leading by example. The first thing that they also show you in Tony Robbins seminars, for example, is to build rapport. And then once you build rapport, you can lead. You have to build rapport first, because if you try to lead without rapport, all you can do is try to control people or try to bully people, basically. But if you have the rapport, and it's not too much against people's values, and why should it be against people's values if you don't do anything that's bad, then you can actually lead by example. And that is something that worked on that campground as well. One of the things that I did initially, I had my cats, but it was one cat and two rabbits initially when I got there in Spain, and they weren't a problem obviously, even when there were a lot of people around, because they were very, very old and not doing anything and basically not leaving my vicinity. But then one of the little kittens, I walked to a shop and I hear, just before little kittens die, they cry very, very loud. And I didn't know that. So I went to the shop and I heard this kitten cry, and I looked if I could find it. I couldn't find it, and walked back, and the kitten was still crying. But I thought, okay, over there's the Devesa, that's the nature reserve where a lot of wild cats were living. I thought, okay, she's going to be fine, and the mother's going to get her. But the next day I still heard that cry, and on the way back again, and I saw that some tourists had put a lot of little bowls there trying to give that little kitten food, and turns out the kitten wouldn't have been able to survive because she wasn't able to eat yet. She was still on milk, basically. So I don't think it helped her much. And I went back to the caravan, and then I thought, okay, I don't really want a kitten right now. This isn't fitting in. I'm in a caravan. I'm in between things. I don't know where I'm going to be going, but I can't let her die. So I took a chair, went out, and told the other people that I had made friends with on the campground, can you help me? And they said, oh no, we can't right now. We have got something else. So I went by myself. I get there, and there's a French tourist, and he's trying to get the kitten out as well. So we worked together. He was standing because it was right next to a very, very busy street. That's why initially I hadn't done anything, because I didn't want to drive her out. But he was then standing on the outside edge, which was literally this far away from a busy street and the tires that were going past, and he was being run over a couple of times almost. And he was standing outside and blocking the way there, and I was trying to get her from here. And it was a long hedge, and it was about a meter, a yard, and very, very dense, right? So it was very hard to get with a hand in, and it took us an hour. But within an hour, I finally got her on the tail. She bit me, and he then got her, and then we put her into a little box, and I took her with me. And well, there wasn't anybody else there that I could ask at that point, so I did take her myself. And as I said, then the children saw that, and the neighbors saw that, and they took a look at the kitten, and the kitten was cute, and their children liked it. So the next morning, they're coming by and say, Petra, Petra, and they called me out of my caravan. I said, I was just waking up and got up. Oh, we found another kitten. And then they saw my face, and I went, another kitten. I had just had so much stress. I wasn't somebody at that point who knew how to raise kittens. I had to figure it out. I had to go and call the vet what to do, and went to the vet, to a Spanish vet, with my Google Translate app because I couldn't speak Spanish properly. So but she was quite good at English, thankfully. She told me about the little milk that you have to get, because otherwise I knew that normal milk isn't going to work, but I didn't know where to get the other milk for the little kittens. So I had managed to, little kittens, they eat like a little baby. Literally, you put the bottle there, and they have special bottles, that take the little paws, and the ears go like this. It's very, very cute. Anyway, so I had done this, but I didn't want a second one right away, and they saw my face, and then they said, okay, we'll take it. And so they took the second kitten, and their children, of course, loved it. And we helped each other, and the woman was then, because these kittens were a little bit sick, they only had one of these big camper vans, basically. I had a caravan and a real car, and there was nowhere to park at the vet. So I took them to the vets. Turns out the kitten was really sick, and it was so young she couldn't get a 14-day injection with antibiotics, but the woman was very, very allergic to penicillin and would have died if she had given her a pill, because she was that allergic. So the way around that is that you give the kitten injections every day, but they didn't have a car, and then there was Sunday was closed. So in the end, what worked then is I drove them every day to the vet, which was another thing where I helped them. Not only they helped also me, they helped me because they helped the kitten, but I helped them as well, and I helped them and their children to make sure that kitten was okay. So that was another way of the Gurkha strategy, basically. Although we were friends at the time, I would have done it anyway. And in the end, they were talking. She was Italian, the vet was Spanish. They could talk to each other. I was just standing there trying to understand what they were talking about. And at some point, I understood that there was a problem. I said, I can help. I didn't understand what I was agreeing to. What I was agreeing to was giving injections to that kitten every day. I had never given an injection to a kitten before. So I found that out when the vet told me to, called me over and said, okay, this is how you do it. You have a little triangle there, and then you put now do it in front of me so I can show you, I can make sure that you're doing it right. Oh, okay. So this is how I learned how to give injections to kittens. And that worked really, really well, because I had to do it later during the lockdown, and the vet, I wasn't allowed to go to the vet. So the vet gave me the syringes. I put them into the fridge. Always if you ever have to do this, always put the syringes into the fridge, because otherwise the antibiotic will constrict for some reason. And then you don't have anything to push out anymore. Anyway, that's also something I learned. But it was a really good thing. So me taking the kitten then got the Italian family to get their kitten too. And then what happened is that the manager, you remember the manager who initially had anxiety with regards to cats, She had two children as well. Her little girl was only a year old. She didn't really see it, but she found the kitten cute. But her son was 9 years old, and he loved the kitten, and he loved the little girl that the Italians had. They were both 9 years old. So he wanted to have a kitten too. So when the next kitten came around and needed to be rescued, they took a kitten. So we all had kittens then. So it was like a little kitten club, basically. And it was lovely for that little boy. And then, of course, there was Petra Park, where I had all these kittens jumping around. And I came into contact with quite a lot of people. And they realized, some of them realized that I wasn't just some hippie who was driving around. I used to have a corporate job where I was paid six figures. So it was, I'm not just somebody who's just crazy and does these things. But sometimes when you have animals and you have to find a solution, there's a solution out there. Maybe it is something that is a little bit out there, but there is a solution. And I found a lot of other people who also had pets, but didn't really have the confidence to go out and do these things. Sometimes they even left their cat at home when they moved because they thought they had this false belief that cats don't bond to the people but only bond to the environment and are going to be fine if they leave. There's a lot of weird stuff out there that has been told over and over and over again, so people do believe it. But when they then see that actually you can travel with cats and they are around and they will follow you around. And what I also did is, because I knew I wasn't going to stay forever, I knew I would have to make sure that these animals follow me physically as well if I go somewhere else, so that I can show them around in the new place, that they don't get lost. Usually they say you have to make sure that you wait for 3 weeks, that you don't let the cats out, otherwise they're going to run away. It's not true if you have the right relationship with cats. With my cats, I can go out, I can let them out within an hour usually, even if I go to in the caravan anyway, because they know the caravan. But if I go to an apartment, for example, as soon as they are comfortable inside and they're not afraid of the inside anymore, and they see that our stuff is there that smells like us, I can let them out. I wouldn't recommend that if you don't have that kind of relationship with an animal, but if you do, that is possible, and people have seen that then. And if you can show this to others. I've had another experience where I used to live in Wiltshire, that one first farm where I used to live with the first where Carter was run over. But of course, something with the visa went wrong, so I had to stay there for another 9 months before I went to Canada, before I went to Vancouver. And there were a lot of other times where I could show that a certain relationship with animals can really help, because in that area, for example, it was very old school, right? So animals were bullied, basically, right? Dogs were bullied, horses were bullied, livestock was bullied. And I had a very different relationship to these animals, like the dogs, or for my landlady, for example. She was also always going like, she told me that I had to use this voice. I wasn't going to use this voice on these dogs. They were beautiful dogs. So I was being really, really nice to them. So in the end, within about a month or so, they listened to me more than to her, because they knew when she was calling them, she was just going to yell at them. Well, when I was calling them, I was petting them. So of course they came to me. If they weren't coming to her because they were kind of hunting, which they weren't supposed to do, but they listened to me when I called them, right? Or the horses. There was a duke there who had his horses on the field, and those horses, I can remember one of the horses had a little bit of a cut on the side, and my landlady was gone for a month in Uganda somewhere, and she left all the animals on the farm with me. That was the 4 horses of the Duke. It was a pig, no, 2 pigs actually, 10 chickens, 2 of her dogs, and a cat, and what else was there? Oh, some turkeys as well, who were walking around a little bit, going in the morning. Anyway, so she left them with me, and I saw there was a cut on the side because there was some problem with the fencing. So I called her friend to make sure, because it was the Duke's horses, right? If the Duke is a pretty, high up thing in England, some of the princes are dukes, right? So I wanted to make sure that his horse is okay. And I called an old friend of my landlady's, and we walked onto the huge big field. And she said, "Oh my God, it's going to take forever. They're going to be back there." And I said, "No, it's not going to take forever." I just went, "Horses!" And the horses were, galloping towards us. Now she was being, she thought that was really weird because usually she was used to, the old school method, which means those horses aren't going to come to you anytime soon, right? You're going to have to chase them. But the horses knew from me, I'd known them for about 2 weeks by that time, that I wasn't giving them any food ever, but I was always nice to them. I was always petting them. I was always loving on them. So they loved me. So I called horses, and the horses were galloping. And they were galloping, and they were still galloping. And suddenly I see how this friend, she was an elderly lady, she says, "Oh my God, it's going to be a stampede." I said, "No, it's not going to be a stampede. They're just going to, stop right in front of us." And she stopped, and I just walked on. And the horses was stopping literally a meter in front of me, the full gallop to a meter in front of me. But I was used to that. I saw that before. And I saw her, eyes going like wide when I looked back. And they were fine, and they were just looking at me. And then she saw the cut, and she had blue with her. Blue is this stuff. It's an antiseptic. So you put on the wound. It was just a very, very superficial kind of scratch. She said, "Oh, okay, let's put the blue on there." And then she took that can and went psst, and jumped backwards, right? Because she expected that horse to do something. And it was so funny. Both the horse and I, we just went. I mean, the horse too. I saw while I was turning my head to turn, at her and think, what's the matter? I saw that out of the corner of my eye, the horse's head go like that too, and he, and then we both turned simultaneously back again. It was so funny. She must have, yeah. I think that is probably going to be a story for a relatively long time. But I did find out afterwards that suddenly my landlady too was starting to treat her animals a little bit differently. And then I saw that the Duke, I helped him to put the horses into the carriage, and I didn't hit the horses on the flank like they told me to, but just guided them softly along, and it worked much better. And I saw, the wires were turning, and then there was this little ram that they were also afraid of, and that ram came to me when I called him. There's a lot of things that you can do if you have a connection to animals, that you can do things that people haven't seen before, not because you're so special or something. I mean, it could be that you actually have that connection to animals that other people can't feel, because you do feel more. That is why we don't want them to be hurt, because when they are hurt, we are hurt, right? The problem is just if you're hurt so much by seeing them hurt that you turn away from it and then don't fulfill your mission in life or what you actually believe in, right? But we do maybe feel a little bit more and maybe have more of a connection. But I found actually that animals do sometimes have a connection to people, even if the people don't feel it, even if their sense of that feeling is shut off. I mean, you can be blind, but that doesn't mean that everything around you isn't there. It's a little bit like if you have a blind person and you're surrounded by blind people, and you're trying to tell them, "Hey, look at that beautiful sunrise." And they say, "There's no sunrise." They don't see it. The sunrise is there. They just don't see it. And the connection between them and the sun is there, but they don't see it. Right? So sometimes, even if you show them certain things, how to do certain things, even if they just mimic your actions, the animals will feel it. Even if they just mimic your emotions, the animals will feel it and will therefore act in a different way. It was really interesting because some of the behaviors I saw change, and that was a beautiful thing. That was a really beautiful thing. Especially with the dogs later, because they were such beautiful, beautiful animals. So why it works is that you show how beautiful life with your animals can be. People with Petra Park, they saw what was going on there, and they saw that it was working, and then they thought about themselves that maybe they could, maybe it would work at home as well. You're focusing on helping others, both humans and animals, which takes you out of yourself. So if you have, every one of us has troubles, every one of us has issues sometimes, and sometimes we do get depressed, or we do get maybe not depressed, but low over it. So if you help somebody else, if it's an animal or a human, it will take you out of yourself. by reversing the energy, you're so getting out of yourself and into service instead, which also is a way of developing yourself, of growing yourself. And it's a little bit like being on stage. Like your performance wouldn't work if you focus on yourself, because you come over like, if you're self-conscious, you come over all wrong. But if you focus on serving somebody else, then things flow, and I realize when I even talk about this, once I say focusing on myself, I start focusing on myself, then suddenly things don't flow that well anymore, right? But if you focus on others and if you focus on animals, that can help you get out of a lot of things in your own life. And you open the eyes to people of what's possible. You unlock what's been overlooked. And a lot of times I even see that on YouTube. I see what people do with some animals that I never could connect that well to, like fish, for example. There was this woman with this fish who would always come back into her arms, and she would, shove it off, and he would fly in the air and fly her down and would come back again. It was like a joyride for him. I'd never seen that with a fish before. I had interesting experiences with a fish once when I was diving with one of these big ones, who was kept following me around because I had given him a banana, and then he wanted more of a banana, but I didn't have one anymore because he'd eaten the whole thing. It was like half a banana with one gulp, and I went, oh, there's my banana, and then he kept coming back to me, looking into my glasses. Every time I wanted to look at something, he would come back and look into my glasses. So fish aren't that stupid either. And I didn't realize until I had chickens how smart these animals are and how loving they can be as well. So you can just by example, without telling people, okay, do this or do that, and you should be doing this. Just by example, people, because they kind of are in competition maybe with you a little bit, and they want to show that they can do this too, they will try that too, not when you're looking necessarily, but if they see that, you can go walk with your cat, then they try that too. Or if they see that your dog or their dog maybe even is acting towards you in a way that they have never managed, they will try that too. So it can have that effect. It can have a very positive effect if you don't just tell them what to do, but if you let them figure it out themselves, but show what's possible. So the outcome here for me was several kittens were saved. The manager overcame her fear of animals. The campground made some extra money with Petra Park because people came back with their children who'd been in lockdown for 2 months to look at the kittens and play with the kittens. And the benefits was we protected those who couldn't protect themselves, like those kittens, for example. The manager and her children enjoyed playing with the animals and can be an example for their surroundings, because that will also go further in their group, in their ethnicity that was there, because they all were brought up with the belief that animals are unclean and you are so dangerous. And when they have their kitten around and it all works, then their friends see that too, right? My family was safe. That was what I initially came for. Other people saw that was possible and got an opportunity to help too, which made them feel good, like those people who gave me money in order to get the cat spayed over there. And the secondary benefit was that the manager can, and that's what she told me later, she was a little bit mad that I left, right, the campground, because when I left the campground basically had to close because I was the main income that they had, but my money had run out. And all my customers, all my clients or potential clients had left because there were no German or English tourists anymore from one day to the other. They didn't come back, for months. So my money ran out, so I had to leave, right? But of course the campground then closed. But she told me later that it was really helpful for her to see, because she comes from a culture where, money and riches and stuff is very much valued, and that is where people hang their happiness on. But I came from England. I had my own house. I had a really good income, and then suddenly I was stuck in this campground with a caravan, which wasn't a massive big caravan, but basically the basic model. It used to be a good caravan 20 years ago, but it's not now anymore. But I was happy, and she saw that. And she saw that a lot of that happiness came from the animals and the connection that I had with the animals. Even during the lockdown, I never felt lonely, ever. That was one of the main issues that most people had during the lockdown during COVID. Although I was on that, you know, in there was one other person there, and she then brought her husband, but they spoke Portuguese. I don't speak Portuguese. They didn't speak English properly, you know, and they certainly didn't speak German. So we couldn't really talk to each other for 2 months, and we, you know, there was, except for the animals, there was nobody else around basically. And we were also not allowed to be too close either because of COVID, right? But I was never lonely, and that is such a beautiful thing that we have. That no matter what happens, we can always connect to something that's out there because there's always nature out there usually, right? So that's a really good thing. So the action here: find situations where you can lead by example. Even if it's something small. It's like, for example, I saw a woman protecting a little worm the other day. You know, so I was driving with my bicycle, and she was just standing on the road and looking down when I was coming. And I thought, what is there? You know, maybe there's something interesting I can take a look at. And she just said, no, I just wanted to, you know, this little, I don't know what it was, a caterpillar or something. I just wanted to protect her because you were coming with the bicycle. And that was so beautiful. Because that's something that I usually do and people don't understand, right? And suddenly there was this connection. So you can just, you know, show people that you do this. And it's a good thing. Or when you see an injured animal, show people that you can do something. You know, like with my landlady there as well, with the little hedgehog. You can bring them to the vet, and the vet can pass them on, or you can bring them to the rescue center. I mean, there's times where you shouldn't be doing that with if it's a little bird and the parents are still around, for example. That's a situation where you shouldn't do it unless it can't survive otherwise. But there are a lot of times where you can help, where people always say, "Oh, you can't do anything." Yes, you can, right? Or post details of your local rescue shelter to allow others to do the same, and maybe the procedure that they have to follow, who they bring where, you know, which animal they bring where, for example, what they have to be aware of. Here in Germany, they've got some weird rules that, you know, even if you just help an animal for a few days, that's like against the law, so you have to bring it to the vet. And even the vet is going to question you how long you have the animals and stuff. You know, last time I found an animal that was being a bird that had been run over by a car, basically, but was, you know, just stunned. And then I saw another car going over it, but the wheel didn't hit it. So I stopped and took the bird in, and it was so stunned that it was just sitting on my lap. So I went to the vet, basically, and they questioned me for quite a while how long I had had this animal and stuff. And I said, hey, guys, I just found this on the street. And I had to talk quite a bit, but you can always convince people at some point. And in some places like England, for example, it's very easy. You just bring it to the vet and they take it, they say thank you, and you go again. You don't pay a thing, right? You can volunteer at the local shelter, or you can start a volunteer group to help shelters. That's what I did with the meetup, because I wanted to find people to at that point, as I said initially in the Gurkha strategy. But that was a really good way also not only to make connections with other people who like animals, but also to help the local shelters, because they really needed people to help them because they weren't advertising, right? And we came as a whole group and helped them out. And that was a lovely thing as well. So that is the action for this.